All right. So good afternoon, you all. So thank you for attending today's webinar entitled Designing Digital Teaching Strategies, Meeting the Needs of All Learners, including learners with disabilities. So I will introduce today's facilitator, starting with Ms. Arlene King-Berry. So Arlene King-Berry is a dynamic educator, lawyer, and publisher with over 20 years of experience in organizational, instructional, and business management across corporate and educational settings. She is a professor of special education at the University of District of Columbia and chair of the Faculty Senate. She has held several leadership roles, including director of the Institutional Review Board and director of special education for Friendship Edison Charter Schools. Her expertise includes assistive technology for individuals with disabilities. We also have Dr. Nicole Powell-Farrell. She is an assistant professor of special education here at UDC. She has over 17 years of experience in special education, working in various roles. Dr. Farrell began her career as a high school special education teacher with Prince George's County Public Schools. She has since served as a special education coordinator, director of student support, school administrator, and special education consultant. We have Carolyn Charles. She is an assistant professor here at UDC with over 30 years of experience in early childhood education. She is a Howard University graduate with a master's in early childhood education and multiple certifications. And she specializes in program management, early care, staff development, and family empowerment. She's also dedicated to sharing best practices with undergraduates, and she is pursuing a terminal degree in program assessment and evaluation, continuing her lifelong commitment to education. And last, we have Twalde Samire. He's an engineering student at the University of the District of Columbia, known for adaptability and thriving in dynamic environments. He's a creative problem solver, and he excels in leveraging new technology while educating and empowering others. He's also passionate about on-the-spot problem resolution, and he's dedicated to lifelong learning and leadership. So these are our facilitators for today's webinar, and I'll let them take it away. So thank you again.
Bonjour. Buenos dias. Guten Morgen. How shall now? Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Have you ever wondered what it's like to have a disability in a general education classroom? Or perhaps what it's like to teach a class full of students, some with identifiable disabilities and others who may not yet have been identified? These questions are more than just thought provoking. They touch the very core of how we approach teaching and learning in today's diverse classrooms. Today's presentation is designed to help increase an understanding of challenges faced by students with disabilities and the educators who serve them, and explore how to meet these challenges and create more inclusive, accessible learning environments on college campuses. The key to this transformation lies in Universal Design for Learning, UDL, an inclusive teaching framework that helps us design lessons and classrooms where all students, regardless of their ability, can engage, learn, and succeed. Get ready to learn how UDL can change how we think about teaching and impact every student's educational journey. Let's unlock the potential for all learners together. Colleagues, the concept of curb cut effect is pivotal in creating inclusive classrooms. Just as a curb cut in sidewalks, they were initially designed to assess individuals in wheelchairs. They have over time benefited everyone from parents with strollers to travelers with rolling suitcases. Similarly, in the classroom, universal design features such as accessible content, flexible teaching methods, and inclusive technology serve to create pathways for all students, not just those with disabilities. The UDL Toolkit is a universal kit, not just designed as a curb cut in your classroom. It's a powerful app that transforms the learning experience for every student. These UDL apps provide access to learning for students with visual, auditory, cognitive, and physical disabilities and enhance learning environments for everyone. Scan the QR code to access the toolkit in Microsoft Office for educators at no cost. This information will also be provided on our reference page. As educators, we share the responsibility to create environments like curb cuts, where all students can succeed. That's where UDL comes in. It's a tool that empowers us to make a real difference in our students' lives through these three principles: designing multiple means of engagement, welcoming students' interests and identities, examples, concept maps, skits online, multiple means of designing representation, designing content options for perception, language, and symbols, designing multiple means of expression, designing options for interaction, expression, communication, and strategy development. We are pleased to have an expert panel of UDC professionals from early childhood, special education, and engineering who will share their insights on UDL. Their diverse expertise will provide valuable perspectives on how UDL can create inclusive and accessible learning environments, offering practical strategies for enhancing educational practices to meet the needs of all learners. While our highly talented engineering student, Talde Samir, cannot be with us today, we would like to take a moment to recognize and highlight his invaluable contributions to this presentation. His expertise and dedication significantly shaped the content we share today, and we are grateful for his hard work and commitment. His contributions have truly enriched this session, and we are proud to showcase the results of his efforts. Today's agenda includes a review of objectives, a simulation video activity, and strategies for classrooms. By the end of this session, you will experience and reflect on what it feels like to experience a disability, understand the importance of accessibility, UDL technologies, and how to design inclusive classrooms. I'd like for you to follow the directions given in this video, which presents an opportunity for you to become engaged and to reflect on your understanding of what it feels like to be disabled. At its completion, a poll will appear asking you to please rate your understanding on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being no understanding and 10 being complete understanding. This will help us gauge our community's current level of empathy and understanding.
And before we hit play on the video, I just want to, it's going to prompt you to grab a writing utensil on a piece of paper. So if you have something close, grab it before we hit play.
Thumbs up when you're ready.
Thumbs up when you're ready.
Okay.
Try this exercise. Pause the video, then get a sheet of paper and a pen and prepare to write. Which hand do you write with? Use the other one to copy this sentence. The moon shone brightly through the window and cast light on all of the various objects the old woman had collected throughout her life. Stop. Time's up. Turn your paper over so you can't read it. Do you remember the sentence you copied? How did you feel while you were writing? How does your hand feel? Now on the back, take a minute to write a descriptive sentence. Using at least 2 adjectives, describe the view out your bedroom window. Stop. Time's up. What do you think of your sentence? What problems appear in your writing? What grade would you give yourself based on your work? This is the kind of struggle 3 million US children face in school every day.
When you have a learning disability, doing the same schoolwork as the other kids can be much harder. Kids with learning disabilities need our understanding and our support. Will you lend a hand?
Thank you. Now we will launch the poll.
We're looking to get to 100% completion. So after viewing the video, please rate your understanding of how it feels to be disabled or to have a disability on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being no understanding and 10 being complete understanding. And right now we're at 70% participation. So let's just get a few more folks to respond. Okay, Dr. Kingpin, we have the majority participated with 80%, and 50% rated themselves at a 7. 13% rated themselves at a 6, 13% at a 9, and then 25% at 10.
So I would ask that, would anyone like to share their any verbal reflections on their rating? You can unmute yourself. How did you feel?
Sure, I'll share. So, uh, of course, it's incredibly frustrating because you know exactly what you want to do. You know where you're trying to go, and you just can't get there. My sentence is a complete mess. It doesn't look like it is in any way the English language, and so you know that is a good reminder of how frustrating it can be when you know what you need to do, you know how you could do it, and you just can't get there, or it takes you much longer to get there. But I did still score myself fairly low because I think this is a 1 minute discomfort for me. I have no idea how this would impact my life if this was a constant.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else like to share? Maybe somebody that got a 10. Okay. Well, next we will hear from our first panelist, Professor Carolyn Charles.
Hello, everyone. I am Carolyn Charles, Assistant Professor from the Community College Branch Campus of UDC, of UDC, the University of the District of Columbia. It is my pleasure to start off our conversation by talking about the guided principles and how we incorporate them in the early childhood classroom. One of the goals that we look at in universal design for learning is learner agency. What does that mean? It means that we create an accessible classroom for all the learners. We provide them with these tools that they can then use to engage and acquire new skills. We also allow them to learn at their own pace, affording them the opportunity to self-regulate and decide for themselves how they would like to explore their own interests. Lastly, we ask them to tap into their learning and become autonomous, or rather accountable for their learning. They will decide what their learning experience looks like. In the early childhood classroom, these are principles that we use from the beginning and are now, as we see, part of the goals of the universal design for learning. Learning agency asks that the children become action oriented. In other words, active learners and have hands on experiences for which they engage. They are asked to be resourceful, utilizing the tools that are provided to them in the classroom as they see fit, usually not saying that they must stick to the way in which they were particularly designed, but then trying to see what they could do for themselves. They must be authentic. Think about what they want to do and how they like to do it. The idea of being strategic just has them to put the pieces together so that they can then decide how they will use it. Purposeful leads them to becoming engaged in thoughts and ideas that will help them with being, as we would say, successful in their completion of what needs to be done. These three pieces speak to intentionality, the idea that they have now decided what they're going to do. And lastly, we ask in learner agency that children reflect, think about what they've learned, talk about what they've learned. And if they're very young children, give them the words that explain what they have actually done. So the reflection happens between the student and the teacher. The three guiding principles of universal design in the early classroom, but in any space and place. The first would speak to engagement. Here we allow the children to become motivated by looking at their interests and having them sustain that motivation by tapping into what they think they want to do. We do so by maybe starting off with music and instruments, having them to engage, as we said, using this action oriented behavior. Here, they could also use reading books that are what we call feely books. They have various textures on them. The children then engage with what they have in front of them and the tools that they have in front of them by using tactile senses. Same goes for utilizing interactive bulletin boards. Here, they have the opportunity to engage with material while standing up, sitting down, or just enjoying the space. The idea is that they are now engaging with materials and they're doing so at their own pace. Representation speaks to their ability to now acquire information and knowledge using various tools and various ways to do so. One of the ways that have now been interested, or rather placed into the classroom, is digital equipment. There was a time before where we thought we wanted them to do was engage in social interaction. But digital equipment affords the children opportunity to still be social with one another, but utilize technology, assistive technology, that can be provided to them. Many of the assistive technologies need to be identified, though, for some of our children in IEPs. Those IEPs will afford them the opportunity now to say directly as to how they will use them. Children are provided with these materials so that they can explore the classroom, self-directed, and now have materials that will afford them what they need to maybe express themselves or give opportunities for them to draw, paint, color, do whatever needs to be done so that they can have their representation or information given to them and their knowledge expressed. Lastly, this idea of action and expression. Children will then engage with materials and demonstrate what they've learned. Planned activities can be given, but usually we'll ask children to work through problem solving ideas and activities, create and explore independently as they discover new ideas and thoughts for themselves. The completion of these age appropriate tasks allows them to do so. And when it is necessary, we do provide them with assistance.
But for the most part, in this classroom, we're asking them to try for themselves. We will do formative assessment through observation and take note of what their growth is, take note of what they're doing and how they are progressing throughout the classroom. When utilizing some of our apps, as we would say, applications, we would think about the early childhood classroom and the need for there to be key components. Here are some of the key components that we consider when looking at the early childhood classroom applications. We want to see that the visual cues and supports are large, bold, big, and also are represented not only through the font, but through pictures, providing the children with context clues. When looking at audio or thinking about audio, we want to make sure that there are narrations that are provided so that the children can hear, as well as, again, with closed caption, see what is being said to them. The idea of that is providing them these two ways for them to engage with material and understanding. Individual feedback should be provided to the children, specific to what they are doing. So there's an engagement or a dialogue that is provided between or given between the teacher and the child. We also want to look to make sure that there are varying levels of rigor. In other words, one child may come in at a level 1 or 2. Another child may be ready to sit at a level 4. But the idea is we'll all get there at some point, and providing them with various levels of rigor affords them the opportunity to be successful where they get started and move further. Lastly, the idea with these apps is to try to provide an opportunity that multiple input methods are provided to them. In other words, how are we engaging in all their senses? We look to see that we can make that happen through the various apps that we choose. The next piece here is going to be some of the apps that I particularly think could be recommended. One of the ones we see more readily used is ABC Mouse. Here, that learning platform provides them with the opportunity, again, to have this adaptable text size, and the audio chronicles are narrated, providing children an opportunity to go through the work that is provided to them or given to them in a way that says they can individualize their learning. Seesaw is another. This particular portfolio app or digital portfolio provides them opportunities to use pictures and videos and drawings and really create their own opportunities. There's a button that they press where they can create a video for themselves and speak about what they've learned or what they've done, or actually show how they've done it in a performance-based sort of activity or assessment. Lastly, there's speech bulbs. Speech bulbs afford persons who are having difficulty with their speech and articulation activities and skills that will give them that which they need so that they can grow in their auditory responses, as well as their visual cues can be provided to assist and help them. These three applications are just some of the applications afforded specifically to early childhood learners. There are many, and we will continue to discuss other apps and other ways in which UDL is used not only in the classroom, but in our daily lives. Thank you.
Oh, I was on mute. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Because I wanted to say, Dr. Farrow will start to speak about Tawaldi Samir and how wonderful his work has spoken to what we've done. And we're very pleased to see and hear what she will provide to us. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi,
Mhm.
everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I am honored to present on behalf of Tawalde. Tawalde developed some really rich and meaningful content specific to DDL and mental health as it relates to thriving in a digital world. And I want to name up front that Tawalde is an engineering major. I'm an educator. So when we talk about advanced technologies, not my wheelhouse, right? It's Tawalde's. And some of the technologies I'm going to reference are totally outside of my sphere of expertise. But I want to be super intentional in giving justice to the thoughtful work that Tawalde has put here into this presentation on his behalf. So just wanted to name that up front. And also, it's important to name, while the primary focus of this content is specific to digital technologies and UDL within the classroom space, the content here really speaks to strategies that we all can use beyond the classroom space. As educators, we can use it in supporting our students, but also as adults and individuals who have to navigate the complexities of life. These are some really helpful tips and strategies that I think we could all use in our day-to-day. So, in thinking about mental challenges and mental health in general in the digital world, I think we're all pretty confident in saying that in today's digital age, we're inundated with constant alerts from breaking news to social media updates, especially given where we are in terms of our political society. And so in thinking about it, these notifications are designed to grab our attention, and they often pull us away from very important tasks. This has the potential to lead to mental overload, which can make it harder for us to focus. It can have significant impacts on our overall well-being. In turn, when we think about what this is like for individuals with mental health challenges and students with diverse learning needs, this digital noise can be even more overwhelming. So in recognizing these challenges, I think the first step is in finding solutions, realistic solutions to thrive in a digital world. So when we think about solutions and relations to UDL, there are some, right? And so we think about the concept of engagement, representation, action, and expression, the core tenets of UDL. And we try to make connections, and the work here is trying to make connections with how that applies to our ability to navigate. So with engagement, it's this idea of providing tools that promote focus and autonomy, and tools that enable us to focus, to tools that allow us to enable focus modes or any other technology or technique that's going to limit unnecessary notifications. In terms of representation in a digital space, is how can we go about simplifying digital layouts and presenting information in multiple ways to reduce overload and overwhelm. And then as far as action and expression, how can we go about encouraging the personalization of our digital environments? This could be as simple as adjusting the font size on our phone or even silencing non-critical alerts, like the ding from my Outlook that keeps going off because I'm sharing my screen. And so thinking about these strategies, there's power in these strategies, and it empowers us to take control over our various day-to-day digital interactions in order to prioritize our mental wellness. And so when we design these principles, we have the ability to create inclusive and balanced digital spaces for everyone that ultimately would have positive impacts on our overall mental health. So, quick reflection activity. We want you guys to take a moment to reflect on your own digital habits. What small changes, or just even one small change, could you make to make an impact on your ability to focus and your mental health? So, just reflect on that for just a minute, less than 30 seconds. Drop an idea in the chat, or we welcome you to come off of mute and share. Just one small thing you could do.
Dr. Farah,
Yes. How do
Dr.
I?
McGinley, hey, you. One thing that I do is make sure that I'm presenting information in multiple ways. So students have the PowerPoint as we're going through. I might be saying it, but I also have materials posted to Blackboard. And when available and accessible, I try to print things out as well. So that there are different mediums for everybody to be able to access material.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And I want to push you here. So, like, that's for your students, but for yourself, thinking about just your own digital habits, thinking about all of the day to day all of the distractions that come to us in a digital space. What's one thing you can do to reduce those distractions?
Oh, for myself.
Yourself, yeah.
Um, I keep my phone on silent.
It's as simple as that. We talk about how do we control engagement? How do we have more control over how we're interacting with in digital spaces? How do we do that in order to make sure that learning is accessible for us, but our abilities to navigate in the social space is accessible without those distractions and those potential impacts on our mental health? It could be as simple as keeping your phone on silent. Christian said, not looking at social media on my way to work, right? Oh, that's a big one. It definitely has the ability to boost or impact your mood. Kelly said taking advantage of airplane mode, at least when writing, right? So you're not distracted when you're trying to complete a task. And that could look different for some folks. Some folks with dynamic attention spans are like the idea or thrive with having some distractions in the background as they're working. Kids said, I have put folders and rules in my inbox so that everything is automatically organized and prioritized. I need you to come sit with me and help me, because that is a good one, right? So, or how do you organize your digital space to ensure that your ability to function as a professional, but also just as a human being, is effective, and also you're limiting those distractions and the potential impacts they can have on your mental health. Thank you for that, guys. All right, so when we make some connections here, we've talked a little bit about how digital distractions can impact mental well-being, and also how UDL strategies provide practical solutions for navigating these challenges. Now I want to briefly expand on I want us to move beyond like those traditional devices, the computers and phones, and look toward the future of technology in education and mental health. And as technology evolves, new tools like immersive notifications and balanced tech are reshaping how we engage with digital environments and how we're creating even more opportunities to apply UDL principles. And again, I'll name this again. These are technologies that Tawalde has provided some content around. Again, not my expertise or wheelhouse. So just recognizing, and I think this is important for us all to know, especially with this presentation, that UDL is not device dependent. You don't have to have apps on a cell phone or specialized technology in order to make it happen. It's not the device, it's a framework that can be applied to any technology within any space. But when we do think about specific devices and specific types of advanced technologies, tools like augmented reality and virtual reality, known as AR and VR, provide opportunities for immersive learning experiences while accommodating different learning preferences and learning needs. Also, immersive notifications on wearables like smartwatches, can offer discrete, prioritized alerts and reduce digital overwhelm. And these innovations allow us to design environments that are more inclusive, engaging, responsive, and supportive of all learners, of all individuals, and in turn of mental health needs as well. So here is just looking at the importance of balance. So when we think about balanced technology and how we have to think about how crucial it is to maintain mental wellness in a digital world. And again, tools like immersive notifications can help users prioritize critical information while avoiding that digital overwhelm. We also want to be reminded that the UDL principles are in place to guide the design of these tools. So again, for example, immersive notifications allow learners to customize when and how they receive alerts, and in turn that can reduce cognitive overload and increase focus. Again, the augmented reality and the virtual reality technologies also have the capacity to expand learning options by offering immersive, hands-on experiences that have the ability to cater to different and diverse learning needs and preferences. And so we're just thinking about how we utilize digital technologies and how we could potentially incorporate these innovations. We as educators, but also just as humans navigating this world, have the ability to create digital environments that are not only efficient, but also supportive of mental health and inclusivity. And so hopefully these tools represent the future of UDL, moving beyond traditional computers to redefine how we engage with technology in meaningful ways. All right, so I think that is a perfect segue to social emotional learning. As educators, and bringing it back to the classroom space, we recognize that there's that mental health and social emotional well-being and learning go hand in hand. And as educators, we have to recognize that when students are not available socially and or emotionally, then providing instruction and producing content is not going to happen. So we want to spend a little time here and just dissecting what social emotional learning looks like within the space of C.A.L, within the space of UDL. Hold on one sec. I'm controlling the screen, so I'm trying to do two screens at one time. All right. So in thinking about social emotional learning, I think it's important to name that it hasn't always been at the forefront of education conversations. And however, in recent years, I think especially post-COVID, there's been a more intentional focus on ensuring the overall well-being of our students. In the digital age, specifically teaching the whole child or whole adult, for those of us who work in adult learning, this means using tools and supports that address both academic and social emotional development and well-being. Digital platforms offer us a unique and powerful way to engage our students in learning and sustaining SEL skills and self-awareness, skills like emotional regulation and relationship building. And these platforms can help in creating avenues that make this work possible in ways that are accessible and inclusive for all. So as we explore just a few digital strategies today, I'm hoping to show you how they can make SEL a priority across any learning environment for little people and for adults, and how they can empower students to connect with themselves and others in a meaningful way. So before diving into some of the specific digital strategies in SEL, I want to briefly define SEL and why it's so crucial, especially for diverse learners. So by definition, social emotional learning is the process through which students develop self-awareness, emotional regulation, and interpersonal skills. These skills are essential not only for academic success, but also for overall well-being. And so again, as educators, particularly in a digital learning environment, we have an opportunity to support students in developing these skills in a new, engaging way that wasn't always available in our traditional classroom spaces. And recognizing that in today's world, our students face challenges that require strong, super strong social emotional skills and resiliency. Integrating SEL through digital strategies is more than just about helping students out academically. It's about, again, supporting them as whole individuals. And so digital tools can make SEL accessible to students from all backgrounds and from all abilities, empowering them to build resilience, foster positive relationships, and navigate in the complex social situations and dynamics. All right, so now we've got a basic understanding of what SEL is. Now I want to talk about how we combine it with UDL to make it effective, especially in digital spaces. So again, recognizing that UDL is a framework that provides flexible ways to engage students, represent content, and allow students to express themselves and what they know. When we remember that framework by applying UDL principles to SEL, especially through digital tools, we're creating a learning environment where all students can access and engage in social emotional learning in a way that works for them. So a perfect example, some students may conduct better through visual supports, while others may benefit from interactive activities or digital journaling. So it varies from person to person because our learning needs and how we navigate it in social emotional spaces is so diverse. Digital platforms allow us to personalize these experiences, these SEL experiences, so that each student has a way to develop skills like emotional awareness and self-regulation. And this approach ensures that every student has access to social emotional learning opportunities, and in turn makes our classrooms more inclusive and supportive. And this is whether our classrooms are in person or online. All right, so I want to look at just a few specific digital strategies that can be used with ease in integrating UDL with social emotional learning. And so these approaches are designed to be flexible and meet students wherever they are. The first strategy is multiple means of engagement. And with using digital tools, we can provide students with different ways to express their feelings and engage in social emotional learning activities. For example, some students might prefer to express their emotions through a digital journaling app, while others might use drawing tools or participate in some sort of video-based reflection. This flexibility allows students to engage in a way that feels comfortable and authentic for them. So next, there are some digital tools to support SEL that align with UDL principles. When we think about educators who either work directly with younger students or educators who teach and coach and mentor other educators who work with young students, the Zones of Regulation app is a super strong and popular one. And this helps students recognize and manage emotions. In addition to that app, there's the Mood Meter. And lots of you guys might have seen Mood Meter or used it in your own PD activities for adult learning. The Mood Meter supports emotional self-awareness. And this tool can be, and these digital resources provide students with frameworks to understand their emotions and practice self-regulation skills. And then finally, a super practical example that I often use within my classroom spaces with my graduate and undergraduate students is the daily emotional check-in. And this can be used on digital platforms like Google Forms or apps that allow students to share how they're feeling at the start of each class session, at the start of each day. And this routine makes it easy for students to communicate their emotional state in ways that suit their abilities and preferences while helping them to build that self-awareness over time. And I know working with adult learners, you might not always think, hey, I need to check in on the emotions of my students and how they're feeling socially before I start teaching. But again, in order for a student to be able to access the content and instruction you've provided, you've got to ensure that they're emotionally available. And so this means finding creative and strategic ways to meet your students where they are in order to ensure that those basic needs are addressed before you move into content. So by using UDL, I've talked a lot, I'm going to bring it on in, but by using UDL and digital strategies to support SEL, We can create an inclusive, responsive environment where every student feels empowered to grow both academically and socially. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Dr. Kingberry.
You received a wealth of information on digital teaching strategies that will enhance learning for all students. Let's delve a little deeper. The UDL Toolkit provides essential resources addressing the three core UDL principles. And I wanted you to, can someone put in the chat briefly the three principles or just say it out loud? What are the three principles? I want to see if anybody can remember. Okay, well, now you're going to remember. The engagement is one, good. All right, well, let's look at them. Engagement, where you welcome students' interests. For example, concept map, skits, online discussions, guided notes, designing representation, designing content in multiple means such as e-text to speech, graphic organizers, multimedia books, multiple needs of expression by designing flexible ways to show how they've learned. Allow students to choose from various formats, like creating a video or doing a painting or a drawing. I will now review apps for different learning challenges. Please refer to the toolkit for further details. On this slide, we'll talk about visual challenges. The screen reader converts digital text to speech. An example in Microsoft Office is called Read Aloud. The magnifier makes the screen easier to see. On the next slide, we will review apps for hearing challenges. Have you ever been to a conference and the microphone is not projecting? This is when the captions help you to understand what is being said. Did you know that you have this option in PowerPoint? And those of you should have the caption scrolling at the bottom. If you don't, there's a way to do that. If you tap more and it will ask you for captions. The next slide reviews apps for learning challenges. The immersive reader found in all Microsoft Office application changes highlighted speech to text, dictates changes speech to text, which also can be used in sending text messages on your smartphone. Review and try each of these apps. Links are provided in the toolkit. The next app reviews challenges for mobility, and I certainly can relate to that. Eye control can be used as an on-screen mouse and keyboard. Hello allows you to sign in without a password using face recognition or fingerprint. The final slide of apps reviews the apps for mental health challenges. These apps make it easier to focus by turning off animation and background images to modify distractions and personalize themes and colors. Next, we will review apps for neurodiversity. Since individuals perceive and respond to the world in different ways, these apps customize tool taskbars and enable fonts that will make reading easier and translate speech to text. In conclusion, since you have an opportunity to experience what it feels like to be disabled, let's look at this next video, which summarizes everything.
Before I hit play, I just want to name that, and when we talk about UDL, one of the primary tenets of the engagement piece is around content that is relevant and of value. And so we've talked a lot about UDL, what it can look like for our students, but we want to close with really giving you some relevant content as to how you can apply it as an adult learner yourself, not just within the classroom space, but just again in how you navigate the world.
Universal design for learning for adult learners. Each learner is unique. In fact, as unique as their fingerprints. Even within a learner, how learning takes place can vary depending on what is being learned, the time of day, or what is going on in their lives. Teachers who use Universal Design for Learning, UDL, understand the importance of celebrating the variability in their learners and ask learners to be an active part, a partner in their learning process. By learning about your own learning, you can apply this information in many ways throughout your life. Let's get started looking at UDL so you can understand and apply this framework to you and your learning. You can access, understand, and apply what you learn through UDL. When you see how what you are learning is similar to something you already know and could be applied in a valuable way in your life, you will recruit interest. Your brain will be ready to learn when you recruit interest. It's like a flashing billboard telling you to pay attention. When you see, hear, or are able to discuss or use information, then you have valuable perceptions. Having a variety of ways to access information or concepts ensures your brain has many options to fully understand and use this new information with what you already know. One day, you may want to watch a video. Another, you may want to listen to a podcast. And another day, you may want to talk with a friend about what you are learning. These are all ways for our brain to use what you're learning and to give you a better understanding. And you'll be able to remember it. Finally, having options for ways to express yourself to show what you know is another part of UDL. Saying what you know, writing it, drawing a picture, acting it out are all ways to take action and express what you know. This allows you to use your unique gifts and apply them to your learning, so information has meaning for you. When you practice UDL and think about ways to use it more in your life, you build your skills and get better at learning. The end goal is for you to internalize these skills and use them all the time, including in your daily life and in work. Continuing to learn and grow is easier and more rewarding when you know what makes you an expert learner. Think of different ways that you learn best and how you can work with your teacher to help them understand your unique learning and goals.
Thank you. We'd like to leave you with this reflection. Just because a man lacks the use of his eyes doesn't mean he lacks vision. Now we'll have questions and answers, Q&A. You can put them in the chat or you can just come off and say it online.
Also
While
invite
we're waiting, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, while waiting for those questions to come or chat pieces, responses to come in, I also wanted to make a final note about when working with our young children. We're talking about teachers as we are all teachers here, but I want also for us to think about as parents and expressing this and giving this information to parents so they too can assist and help their young children with finding ways to use this sort of technology, but also learn best how they gather information, how they take information, and provide them with those materials so that they can too be successful in their growth and development, not only at school, but also at home.
I'll just come off and just comment very quickly that first, this was an excellent presentation to all of you. Thank you for this. As a learner who grew up with ADHD, that multiple means of representation meant a lot to me of how to disseminate information in ways that actually connected to me and and allowed me to engage in it. So kind of hearing this presentation really does bring back a lot of those memories growing up of how I had excellent teachers who wanted to make sure that I could connect and gave me multiple pathways to connecting. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? If not, thank you for participating today. These are our references, and if you would like them, we can certainly send them to you. And finally, we have our QR codes on one of our previous slides for the UDL toolkit.
Right, and I just would like to say, I'm just reading the chat if y'all didn't get a chance to see it. Grace said SEL frameworks I think will be super important, especially in our current political climate. You all make me realize that SEL and UDL have a lot of much needed crossover. And then her question is, how can we make SEL practices more culturally responsive and inclusive?
I think that is a great question, and you've absolutely in terms of our current political climate. I think first of all, culturally responsive and inclusive SEL is essential. And I think there has to be space for us to be very intentional in seeking out development and learning because it's not something that you naturally just walk into a classroom and own, right? There's got to be some work that goes into understanding what individuals outside of yourself need, even those of similar backgrounds or cultures or races or ethnicities. You know, our needs vary, our experiences vary, and so we have to be intentional there. But even beyond just PD, one simple thing that you can do is ask your students, what do you need? And so when I say like at the beginning of those sessions, when you do those emotional check-ins or like how's everybody feeling or the mood meter, turning it into some type of activity to get the class going, like those are times where you're demonstrating, you're modeling, hey, I care about how you feel. I care about your social emotional well-being. And I know that it's a priority to address it and speak to it before we move into this content. That's secondary. And so when you model it and you show that you care, students will be it over time, hopefully will become open and responsive to that and communicate what they need from you in those moments. And that's simple. That doesn't take anything. It doesn't take an app, a software, or anything. Just it's a simple question. I'd start there.
Yeah, I definitely second that because when I was a classroom teacher, I used to do those SEL check-ins, and at first my students were like, "Why are we doing this? It's nothing to do with math." But then they actually look forward to just talking freely about how they felt or like, various topics and things of that nature before we went into the content. So I definitely agree with what you just said.
That's such a good point, Kayla. Like, I think we have to remember that like students are humans first before they're students. So how can they be expected to do math when certain things are going on? And of course, there's going to be a balance always of wanting to do the content and making sure that they're learning, but they can't learn in some contexts. So that check-in is super important. Thank you for that answer.
I also want to just add that observation is key. First and foremost, in early childhood, the first thing we do is really sit back and observe. Take a look at the smiles, look at the frowns on the face, look at the body language. That is going to assist and help you with really knowing where your students come in or how they're coming in. Even as adult learners, sometimes you'll see them walk into the classroom. Or what I love about us teaching online is they must have their camera on, right? That's one of my big things when you come into Professor Charles's class, because I can read their faces sometimes. Or if there's this frown, their brows frown, it's this idea of, do you understand? Are you getting it? Can I help you? That kind of a thing makes a huge difference. So I know some of our students are sometimes apprehensive about keeping their cameras on, but I try to make it, again, a safe space so that they understand that this is how I'm going to be able to engage with you. I can't walk around the classroom, touch you, come to you, speak to you as I would like before. And this is how I can see and hear and get a feel for who you are. So observation, coming from the early childhood realm, I guess, is key for me. Really taking a look, because sometimes our infants, of course, cannot tell us how they feel, and not till they become toddlers and a little older can they let us kind of know what's going on with them. But this idea of taking a look and really reading, whether you're 5 or 55, a person's face to kind of get a feel for what they're going through.
I would just like to say that it has been a pleasure presenting with these two experts, Professor Charles and Dr. Farrow, and also Tawalde. And to let you know that some of your students were emailing me, they had problems getting into the presentation, but to let everyone know that this will be recorded so you can have your students or whoever couldn't get in see it at a later date. And if there's no other comments, I will turn this back over to Kayla and say thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, and just second that. Thank you for coming, y'all. Y'all should expect an email from me about like where to get your PD certificates and how to fill out the survey. But thank you for attending.